Our top story of the day, the Department of Justice granting immunity to Brian Pagliano. He is the Clinton staffer who installed the private email server in her upstate New York home. I want to bring in Fox News senior judiciary analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you.
Oh, good morning.
So I was reading through your notes, and one thing really struck me. If they were not serious, perhaps, about the next level of this investigation, why would they grant Pagliano immunity?
They wouldn't. The fact that he has immunity means the following. Only a federal judge can grant immunity. A federal judge will only grant immunity to a witness whose testimony the government needs to testify before some proceeding. The proceeding is a grand jury, so we know already the FBI is interacting with the Justice Department. The FBI has already made some recommendations to the Justice Department. The Justice Department has accepted those recommendations seriously, has convened a grand jury, and has begun or will soon begin to present evidence to the grand jury. And they need Mr. Pagliano's testimony immunized, which means he no longer has the privilege against self-incrimination because they can't use against him whatever he says. It also means, this is profound, they intend to indict someone. It's not Brian Pagliano. He can only be indicted if he commits perjury, if he lies under oath. But they intend to indict someone in this chain north of him.
Why do you get that from this?
Because that's a great question. The procedure to obtain immunity is so time-consuming and involves such resources, they would not do it just for the heck of it. They would not do it to satisfy newspaper editorialists or political commentators. They would only do it if they are seriously presenting evidence before a grand jury and they need the live testimony of this witness.
Yeah. So because he before pleaded the Fifth and continued to plead the Fifth, they went back and they were able to find something that they needed him to talk about. So they went through the steps to get the judge to grant immunity. Is that essentially what happened?
Yes, Kevin,
okay.
That's exactly the way it happened, but it's even more interesting than that. His lawyers sat down with Justice Department lawyers, and they did a procedure. It's a wacky name. You'll like the name of this procedure. It's called Queen for a Day. It basically means the witness tells Justice Department lawyers what he would say to a grand jury, and whatever he says, they can never use against him. They can only use against somebody else. After that procedure, they decided, yes, we need him to say this to a grand jury, but the only way he'll say it to a grand jury is if we promise not to prosecute him, hence the immunity.
Can we talk about the timing of all of this?
Yes.
First of all, are you surprised it's going as fast as it is?
I am, knowing the FBI, I'm not surprised, but I will tell you this. The FBI is many steps ahead of where we all thought they were.
Correct.
The concept of an FBI recommendation is not one piece of paper with one recommendation.
Right.
It's a series of interactions and revelations between the Justice Department and the FBI, so that the two of them, DOJ, FBI works for the DOJ, will come to a common consensus.
So Loretta Lynch made it very clear in that interview with Brett Baer that there's no deadline for this investigation and that this will be handled like any other review. Let me take it to politics for a second. We are obviously in an election year. Do you think that there is going to be any major outcome prior to November?
I think there will surely be indictments prior to November. I don't know if Mrs. Clinton herself is going to be indicted, but Brian Pagliano is at the bottom of the totem pole. Mrs. Clinton is at the top. In between are Patrick Kennedy, that's not the late senator's son, that's another person with that same name, Philippe Reines.
That was one of her spokespeople.
Correct. Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin, and others. Now, the typical federal procedure is to start at the bottom, either indict the person and they spill the beans, or get immunity for the person and they spill the beans, and work your way up.
But they wouldn't convene a grand jury if they didn't feel they had enough serious information that there might be indictments.
I would amend the statement slightly, Georgette. They would not convene a grand jury with an immunized witness unless they intended to indict someone. The very fact that they persuaded a federal judge to give Mr. Pagliano immunity means for sure they intend to indict someone, not Mr. Pagliano.
One thing he's going to say is that he was paid $5,000 in early 2009 by Hillary Clinton to divert his emails, her emails from the State Department into her private server.
Okay. While all this is going on, the State Department is being sued by Judicial Watch, and the judge in that lawsuit late last week said to the Judicial Watch lawyers, you can take the deposition of all of Mrs. Clinton's aides. I'm not going to let you take her deposition yet. Here's what I want you to find out for me. Was there a conspiracy in the office of the Secretary of State of the United States to violate federal law? And what federal laws would that be? Freedom of Information Act and espionage laws, the obligation to keep secret state secrets.
Yeah. But what happens if she gets indicted after she wins the
nomination?
Yeah,
that's a great question.
That'll be up to Democratic Party rules. I would think that would be catastrophic to the Democrats. In my column today at foxnews.com and the Washington Times, I say, don't the Democrats want to know before they complete their nomination process if Mrs. Clinton is likely to be a criminal defendant?
Yeah, but couldn't this just take too long? Because think about it. You talked about how he was at the bottom of the totem pole. They're going to have to get through everyone else to get all the way up to Hillary. That's going to take way too long. She's going to make it through this nomination process before they can even recommend an indictment.
But that's the point I'm making. Then what happens?
Kevin, as I was walking in here, just glancing at my iPhone, Fox News reported that a federal law enforcement official, name unrevealed, expects this to be wrapped up by May.
Wow.
It's 2 months before the Democratic National, or 3 months before the Democratic National Convention.
So is it fair to say that this has now taken a major turn with this aide being granted immunity?
Absolutely. It's also fair to say that a grand jury is or will soon be hearing evidence in the case, and the government plans to indict someone.
The irony of this is that if, in fact, she gets indicted, it'll be the Democratic convention that will have to take it to the floor and pick someone to represent the Democratic Party.
We touched base on this earlier. This administration is never going to indict her. There's going to be a recommendation for an indictment, but they're not going to indict her. They didn't do anything to the IRS and Lois Lerner. So she'll be fine in this type of situation, but it's just unfortunate because she's going to get the nomination because she's got the super delegates.
If the FBI tells the Justice Department, we have enough information, we have enough evidence, solid, legally obtained evidence to indict and convict, and the Justice Department rejects that, expect resignations from the FBI and leaks of all the evidence. That will have a catastrophic effect on her candidacy.
Thank you very much, Judge Napolitano there.